Historical truths emerge only with time, after which they are ours, particularly on Halloween, to mangle. A lush mythology grew up around the trials, one that reassured us that these events took place in a remote land in no way resembling our own. In truth, they are deeply woven into the world's fabric. If you dig deep enough, say scientists, you can find some truth to legends and creation stories. Myths have fed the imaginations and souls of humans for thousands of years. The vast majority of these tales are just stories people have handed down throughout the ages. But a few have roots in real geological events of the past, providing warning of potential dangers and speaking to the awe we hold for the might of the planet. Here is the list of top 10 greatest historical myths that need to be busted. Number 10. Columbus proved that the Earth was round. Occasionally, a poorly informed history teacher might suggest that Christopher Columbus was trying to prove to a skeptical world that the Earth wasn't flat, but round. Unfortunately, this teacher has fallen for one of the most baseless myths. Hardly anyone in history seriously thought that the Earth was flat. It was American author Washington Irving, some 500 years after Columbus sailed to America, who first portrayed the Italian explorer as launching on his voyage to prove that the Earth was round, defying the common. Since the 4th century BC, almost nobody has believed that the Earth is flat. Even if that wasn't the case, Columbus would never have set out to prove that the Earth was round, simply because he didn't believe it himself. Number 9. Edison invented the electric light. Is it not so, don't tell me? We've heard about it, read about it, and believed it, and it is a myth. Developed world had created the bulb years before Thomas Edison ever created one. Edison's contribution was to improve on it. Previous versions were unreliable, expensive, and didn't last very long. Up to 20 other independent inventors were doing the same thing as Edison at the time, trying to build a better light bulb. Edison's version of the light bulb improved on the filament, used a sealed vacuum bulb, and had a lower voltage than others at the time. The result was a marketable product that could last for hours. A major achievement, but not the first. 4 decades before Edison was born, English scientist Sir Humphrey Davy invented our lighting using a carbon filament. Now you know the truth. Number 8. Did Vikings wear horned helmets? Vikings are filled with lots of horned helmets. It's everywhere, from football mascots like the Minnesota Vikings to far too many New Yorker cartoons. The only problem is that those horned helmets are a complete myth. Forget almost every Viking costume you've ever seen. Yes, the pugnacious Scandinavians probably sported headgear when they marched into battle, but there's no reason to believe it was festooned with horns. The main culprit, costume designer Carl Emil Doppler, who included horned helmets in his gorgeous costume designs for the 1876 performance of Wagner's classic Norse saga, Der Ring des Nibelungen. Next, on number 7, Captain Cook discovered Australia. Many Australians will agree that this isn't so, but for the wrong reasons. They will point out that many years before Cook arrived in Sydney in 1770, Australia had already been visited by Dutchman Abel Tasman and Dirk Hartog, and an English buccaneer William Dampier. Of course, it had previously been discovered some 50,000 years earlier by the indigenous Australians. But in fairness to Cook, he did discover a new part of the country, and more importantly, this led to the first white settlers. So let's say that Cook did discover Australia. Fine. But Cook was actually a lieutenant when he sailed to the Great Southland. Now, what will you say to correct the history? Number 6. Did Mussolini get the trains running on time? Say what you like about Mussolini, he made the trains run on time. That was the famous last excuse for fascism. It is a myth that, whatever his faults, Benito Mussolini, dictator of Italy in the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s, made the trains run on time. He didn't. If even a man with dictatorial powers cannot enforce a railway timetable, what hope is there in a messy democracy? That the majority of big expresses, those carrying eyewitness tourists, are usually put through to time. But on the smaller lines, rail and road bend conditions frequently cause delays. And there is no shortage of witnesses to testify that even the tourist trains were often late. Number 5. The death of Catherine the Great. One of the more colorful history myths revolves around the death of Catherine the Great. Of course, everyone dies eventually, but rarely is that death attributed to bestiality. The Russian queen, Catherine the Great, actually died in bed of illness, a rather boring and conventional means of passing rather than to a horse. But the rumor mill somehow lit ablaze over accusations that she died crushed under a horse with which she was attempting to mate. Rumors are hard to retrace, but one suspected source of this myth is French aristocracy, who were known rivals. Next is number 4, Marie Antoinette, who once said, "Let them eat cake." "Let them eat cake" is the most famous quote attributed to Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France during the French Revolution. As the story goes, it was the queen's response upon being told that her starving peasant subjects had no bread. Because cake is more expensive than bread, the anecdote has been cited as an example of Marie Antoinette's obliviousness to the conditions and daily lives of ordinary people. But did she ever actually utter those words? Probably no. Well, for starters, the English translation of what was originally in French is confused. Marie Antoinette is said to have actually said, "Cueillis manget de la brioche." This translates into English as "let them eat brioche," a sweet French breakfast bread. Furthermore, there is no anecdotal nor historical evidence from that time that Marie Antoinette ever uttered those words. In fact, it was probably a rumor started as a way of further decreasing her popularity among the general population. Down to number 3. Witches were burned at stake in Salem. From the realistically frightful scenes of the Blair Witch Project to the decidedly wholesome Glinda the Good Witch and the Wizard of Oz, magical mavens are the center of some of our most enduring and endearing stories. Take Salem Village, Massachusetts in 1692. A town doctor diagnosed a group of girls as being afflicted by black magic. Prone to seizures and screams, the girls were accused of witchcraft, a notion that didn't sit too well in the Puritan settlement. The myth of burnings at the stake in Salem is most likely inspired by European witch trials, where execution by fire was a disturbingly common practice. Second spot, Newton was hit by an apple. Apples get bad press with the famous story that scientist Sir Isaac Newton was under a tree minding his own business when an apple fell on his head, just as well as it provided him the inspiration for the laws of gravity, or the poor apple would never be forgiven. But while the falling apple is a good story, it probably never happened. The story was first published in an essay by Voltaire, long after Newton's death. Before that, Newton's niece, Catherine Conduit, was the only person who ever told the story. It was almost certainly an invention. Finally, number 1. More people are alive today than have died throughout history. Oh really, is it so? No, of course not. Let's bust that myth with logic. It has been suggested that about 6 billion people have died since the time the Egyptian pyramids were built. That would be about 1 billion fewer than the number of people on Earth today. But even if we use the most conservative dating methods for the age of the Earth, the pyramids were still a relatively late event. There would have had to have been millions of people, perhaps billions of people, who died before then. Our current global population just can't keep up. Okay, that is it for today's video. So which myth is hard for you to bust? Did it get included in the list? Tell us in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel, District 10 TV, for more videos like this. Also, you may also list down your suggested topics below so we can make a video for it. Yep, we got you. You may check out our previous videos as well. Thank you for watching, and see you in our next video.